From the nation's capital, this is the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast with your host, Rob Snowhite.
Thank you for downloading the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast. This is Series 2, Episode 53. My interview with Dan from Chagrin River Outfitters in Chagrin Falls, Ohio. I've been stopping into that store as my local resource for Lake Erie tributary steelhead for the past, 5 years now. 5 or 6 Decembers. I head up there, stop in the shop, find out what's going on. You can follow them on all their social media, Instagram, Facebook. It'll be mentioned in this podcast. And they've been a supporter of me, sending me some care packages. And if you stop by the Somerset Fly Fishing Show and mention this podcast, I'll give you one of their stickers. There's a limited supply, so make sure you get there on Friday morning and mention it. Hope you all enjoy this podcast. And if you stop into the fly shop, be sure to let them know that you heard them on the podcast. It's a short one, but it's full of all sorts of information. You might want to take notes. All right, so we are at Chagrin River Outfitters. Dan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Dan Pramanik from Chagrin River Outfitters here in Chagrin Falls, Ohio, northeast Ohio. Right along the northern shore of Lake Erie. So if we were outside the southern shore of Lake Erie.
If we were going to throw a dart at Ohio, be in sort of top right corner?
Top right corner, yep.
All right. And you are mostly a shop, just from the colors in here, it looks like mostly steelhead stuff.
Mostly steelhead, definitely. We wouldn't be here without the steelhead fishery. Obviously, we cater to the folks in the area that trout fish in PA and Michigan and do destination trips, whether it's saltwater or out west and things like that. But yeah, our bread and butter is definitely the steelhead fishery.
How far are we from the river?
Whoa, well, I mean, from the river itself, 100 yards? 100 yards?
Oh, really?
Right. It's right on the other side of that building.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Very cool.
When then the steelhead come up right to, give it another 150 yards right over to the waterfall in town here. The steelhead come pretty close to the shop.
So dead end for them right there?
Right there, yep.
Are you allowed to fish down there?
You can fish there, absolutely. Absolutely.
Might have to do that tomorrow.
They're in there.
Yeah, it's a dead end, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Waterfall is always a good place to fish for migratory fish, right?
Yeah, so right now we had major ice melt, and that's why the river's all muddy?
Well, we had a lot of snow melt, little bit of ice melt, and on top of that we had a pretty good rain, about a half inch of rain as well. So you combine the half inch of rain and 5-6 inches of snow and a little bit of ice melt, and yeah, the rivers came up and got a little dirty there for a few days.
And most of the steelhead fishing is based on the water levels and clarity?
Absolutely. There's everybody tries to hit the prime windows around here as far as water conditions go, and they only last for a few days. Luckily, the way our rivers work, the size of the watersheds, they're all a little different size watershed. So usually, if we have weather event like we did here, where with a little bit of rain, a little bit of snow melt, the rivers will blow out, and then they'll kind of start coming into shape in an order. Usually the Chagrin's the first one that starts fishing here in Ohio on this side, and then you can get a few good days of fishing in on the Chagrin. Then typically the Conneaut will come into shape because it's a little big watershed, so it takes a little bit longer to get into prime conditions. So that'll start fishing for a few days. And usually once the Conneaut starts getting low and clear, if you haven't had any more rain or any other precipitation after that, then you can start fishing the Grand for a few days. So, chasing around the water conditions is the key, I think, in Ohio for being successful at catching fish. One river may have a few more fish in it than the other, but I think ideally what you're looking for is the conditions that are best for actually catching them. You can't have it high and muddy because they can't see the flies and they're trying to, just stay out of the way of the stuff coming down the river. And when it gets low and clear, they just get spooky. They're there, but they're hard to catch. They're vulnerable. They're not used to being in 4 feet of clear water.
Right.
They're used to being in 80 feet of water and swimming anywhere they want in the lake. So the key here in Ohio is definitely trying to have the water conditions in your favor.
And these fish come in the fall?
They do. So yes and no. So, right over the border in PA, they stock a fall run fish, more of a fall run fish, and we get a lot of strays from there. A lot of the fish we catch in the fall are strays from Pennsylvania. The Ohio fish is more of a spring run fish. The Manistee strain of fish is what we have right now, and they're more of our fish typically start coming in around mid to late November is when you start seeing the bigger Ohio fish. And you can tell the difference. The PA fish are shorter and thicker, where the PA and the Ohio fish are just longer and leaner. So you can definitely tell the difference between a PA fish and an Ohio fish. And our fish usually start coming in around, like I said, around Thanksgiving time.
And do they stock them in the river?
They do. They stock them as, the rivers here get really warm in the summer, 80 degrees. So there's not a whole lot of natural reproduction. There is a little bit in some of the really small spring-fed tributaries that dump into some of these rivers, but it's minimal. So what they do is they stock these steelhead as smolts, about 7 inches long in the springtime. And they stock about 400,000 fish per year. It's broken up more or less into about 100,000 fish per river that they stock. Actually, it's 5 now, but each river gets, let's say roughly around 100,000 fish. And they stock them in the spring, and then those fish go out to Lake Erie when the water temperatures warm up, and they spend 2-3 summers out in the lake, and then those are the fish you see start returning into the rivers.
Can you tell a stocked fish versus a wild reproduced fish?
Some people say they can. I mean, we catch a lot of really nice fish here. Really clean fins, not marked up at all, and you hear a lot of people say, "Oh, that must be a wild fish, must be a wild fish." I can't tell the difference. There's no fin clips and things like that, that you can say, "Oh, there's a right fin clip or there's a left pec fin clip or something like that." So there's nothing that the state does to be able to tell the difference between what would actually be a wild fish or a stocked fish. But so I don't know of any way to tell directly, to be honest with you.
The ones in Virginia, they stock. They got no fins. Their faces are just like squared off.
Yeah.
And they just look. You feel bad for those fish.
The trout.
Yeah, that have just been swimming in concrete rubbing
tanks.
Up against the. If they go counterclockwise, there's left fin's gone. If they go clockwise.
Yeah. Yeah. So these, I think a lot of it is, because they're not in the raceways and whatnot as long. They're not stocking full-grown catchable fish. They're catching, they're stocking 7-inch smolts. So they're not that banged up. They're in pretty good shape when they release them. Right. So in return, what you get back is a pretty clean, good-looking fish a lot of times.
What do they eat in the winter and spring when they're in here? Because I've been flipping over rocks for 5 years. I found 2 snails today. That's it. Mm-hmm. Never found a leech, a crayfish, a crest bug, stonefly, or anything. Yeah, so, there's not a whole lot of insect life in a lot of these rivers. The reason being, I don't know if you've ever seen anchor ice. Do you know what anchor ice is? The ice that forms from the bottom up. Right. So
that kills a lot of the insect life. In Ohio, we get a lot of anchor ice, and that's what all the biologists say kills a lot of the insect life, especially on some of these bait rivers that we have, and where there's a lot of shale and things like that. There are decent caddisfly populations in some of the rivers. The Grand River has an interesting, has a pretty big populations of golden stoneflies. Golden stoneflies, a decent bug there in the spring. There's a lot of black stoneflies, the little black stoneflies. You'll see a lot of those in the spring. But at the same time, there's a lot of bait fish, sculpins, minnows, dace, things like that the steelhead will feed on. But at the same time, they're in the river to spawn. So, the lack of, there's food for them to eat, but they're not there to eat. Maybe that's one of the reasons we can be successful at catching them at times. I don't know. Maybe they're just hungry, but there's not a ton of food for them in the rivers. That's for sure. The main food sources for them are, in the springtime, there's a lot of eggs, when the fish are spawning, so they'll definitely key in on those. In the falls, there's crayfish in the fall. You'll feel a lot of them. You'll pick them up, you'll catch them, and you can tell they've been eating crayfish, or, you can feel them in their bellies.
Weird. You ever see them with the claws sticking out?
That I have not.
I'll get bass that have that. You
Yeah.
see some antennas and claws sticking out.
Yeah, I've seen it with bass. I've seen it with trout, but I don't think I've ever seen it with steelhead. A lot of shiners come in the lower rivers that come in from the lake when the temperature changes and the rivers get warmer than the lake temp. Those shiners and shad will move into the lower rivers pretty thick. So that's a pretty good food source for them there, too.
Gizzard shad?
Gizzard shad and Lake Erie emerald shiners, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Those gizzards are nasty.
They're probably good for a fish, though.
Yeah.
They're
oily and
yeah.
super nutritious, but yeah.
They
They're
are
the Jawas of the fish world. No one likes them.
They're slimy.
Let's see. Now, flies, a lot of intruders. Is that just to get in their space, just piss them off into biting?
Yeah, that's just kind of trickled here from the West Coast. A lot of what we're doing now with two-handed rods and swinging flies and skagit heads, and a lot of the flies we're tying are intruder-style flies. But I still think you're better off personally fishing something that's more an imitation of what they're actually eating. So I still think sculpins work better than intruder-style flies. I think your string leech patterns, because there are a lot of leeches in Lake Erie and the river in sections, and that's one of their food sources. So I think a string leech a lot of times is going to outfish an intruder. And the emerald shiner, any kind of minnowy bait fish pattern or gizzard shad type pattern, yeah, that's going to outfish an intruder-style fly, in my opinion, as well. So while we do fish, and a lot of guys are hung up on fishing intruders, I definitely think there's styles of flies that out day in and day out are going to fish better than those. Absolutely. But the intruder style fly, sure, it gets in their space. It's a territorial thing and it's an aggression thing, and yeah, they hit them pretty good.
You definitely have the time material back there to make some intruders.
Yeah,
a lot of for a small space. You've got a solid time.
Yeah, no, we have there's a big, the fly fishing community in Cleveland is pretty big. And the fly tying community is very big as well. And, obviously you get into January and February, and there's more time to tie flies than there is to fish, right?
No more football.
No.
Cold, long days.
No, we got the Cavs, though.
Yeah, they did good last year.
Yeah, they did all right. But, yeah, we have a lot of guys that tie flies, a lot of really good fly tyers, and a lot of and not just for steelhead. I mean, the main thing here is steelhead, but a lot of guys fishing for trout, a lot of guys fishing for pike, muskie, and those kind of things. So we try to cater to them also.
Did you get the lake run smallmouth?
Yeah, so springtime. So right about the time, not that the steelhead fishing's winding down, but it's starting to warm up a little bit temperature-wise in the rivers and the lake. Usually to ballpark it, say mid-April, you'll start seeing some smallmouth show up in the lower rivers. And that'll go, it's probably going in earnest. It depends on the year. It depends on how quick the water warms up or doesn't warm up. It's definitely a temperature thing, but usually going pretty good through May into early June. And the fishing can be, really, really good for the lake run smallmouth. Conneaut and the Grand are a little better options. You don't get as many in the lower Chagrin because the bottom of the lake leading up to the river mouths of the Grand River, the Rocky River, Conneaut Creek, Elk Creek is all rock, whereas the bottom out in front of the Chagrin is mostly sand.
I stepped in a lot of sand today.
Yeah, so it doesn't draw them into the mouth as much, so the Chagrin's not as good as a lake run smallmouth fishery, but it can be okay. But the Rocky, the Vermilion over on the other side is good. The Conneaut, the Grand, Elk Creek, all can get loaded up pretty good with big lake run smallmouth. It's not a stretch to say you could legitimately catch a 7-pound smallmouth in these rivers in the spring. I've seen fish that they'll go 7 pounds. Never hooked one, but I've seen them, and I've seen guys pictures of them that definitely fish would go 7 pounds. Now most of them are probably around 3.
That's still huge for me.
2.5, 3, but they're big, fat lake run, pre-spawn lake fish from Lake Erie, and they're pretty aggressive when they come in. Then they get on the beds, and you don't really want to mess with them there. You want to let them do their thing, and then when they're heading back out to the lake, they get hungry again, just like the steelhead do. The smallmouth don't run as far up the river as the steelhead do. A few miles is what you're kind of looking at there. There's ones that go further, but I think the bulk of them, stay in the lower few miles of river. But it's something that guys just don't do. I mean, you can go fish the Grand or fish the Conneaut April 15th, and there's guys all over the place, and you can go May 15th and have the same kind of fishing, and you won't see a soul. I just think guys are getting into, they're putting their boats in the water for Lake Erie fishing. They're getting back into golf. There's just and they've been fishing the river since October, so they're kind of over it, so to speak. But can
you float through here, like put a canoe in or a little kick boat?
There's people that do. We don't really encourage it because the rivers really aren't big enough to handle traffic and not get in people's way that are wade fishing. You know what I'm saying? But there's people that do, and the people that do it attempt to do it in places where they're not getting in many people's way, as far as access points, and trying to float through sections of river that aren't really accessible by wading. So there are guys that do it, but they try and stay out of the majority of the wading angler's way. It is doable, but like I said, it's not something that's really promoted because it would be a little too much traffic, I think.
All right. So let's say someone walks in here that doesn't have any fishing gear. Mm-hmm. What's the outfit that's going to cover somebody for pretty much the lake run species?
Mm-hmm. So,
feel free. Mention the rods and brands you carry. And
sure. We carry. We're big on Scott. We sell a lot of Scott rods. Local reps, Jerry Darkus and Jeff Liskay are great guys, and they're always helping out here in the shop. And Scott rods, the last few years, the more and more I look at rods I have, my own personal rods, there's more Scotts and less other stuff every year. They're just making unbelievable fly rods right now. Sages are good. Orbis is good. We carry some TFO. We carry some Reddington as well. We carry Winston and a few other brands, but they're all good and they all work. But I'm really big on Scotts right now, as are a lot of other people. But you're looking at a 9.5 6 weight or a 10-foot 7 weight for the majority of our fishing. A good stout 9.5 foot 6 weight with a fighting butt, I think, is fine, and it's a little better outfit for when you're bass fishing. 10-foot 7 weight. For indicator fishing, that little bit of extra length, 9.5 foot, 10 foot, when you're indicator fishing is super important. Helps you keep some line off the water, helps you mend easier, helps you roll cast better. It doesn't sound like much, but if you and I were to go fishing, and if you had never been fly fishing before, and I handed you a 9-foot 7 weight to fish for a few hours, and then handed you a 10-foot 7 weight to fish for a few hours, having never even fly fished before, you would say, man, this 10-foot rod is a much better tool for the job. Doesn't sound like much, 6 inches a foot, but it makes a huge, huge difference. So 9.5 foot, 10-foot 7 weight, and that's true for any kind of indicator fishing, high stick nymphing, where you're trying to keep line off the water and get the best drift you can. A lot of guys, you'll see a lot of the trout rods, guys are going to 10.5 foot, 11-foot nymph sticks, things like that. It's the same principle. You want to reel with a large arbor. We're big fans of the Nautilus, the new XL. Sell a lot of those. The T-Board Backcountry's great. Nautilus, Gurus, Reddington, Orvis, Ross. We have a pretty decent selection of reels for guys, but you want something that balances well on whatever rod you want. You want something with a large arbor, I think, to help with line pickup. You want something with a smooth drag adjustment, where you turn the drag knob a few turns and it doesn't go from backlashing to stopping a freight train. Because a lot of times if the water gets low and clear, we are fishing fairly light tippet. Sometimes you're using small hooks, and you're hooking, you're fishing a size 12 nymph and you hook a 12-pound steelhead. You need something with a smooth drag adjustment and a nice soft tip on there to keep from breaking a light tippet or bending a hook. So, like you said, you're looking at 9.5 foot 6 weight, 10 foot 7 weight, a reel with a good drag adjustment, large arbor, and balance as well on the rod.
Now, what about, there's a lot of rock I've been stepping on out here. Do you go with sticky rubber with studs?
Yeah, that's a good question. So that's one of those questions I think everybody has a little different opinion on, but I'm still if there's not snow on the ground, I'm still a big studded felt fan. I think the felt grips better on the rocks than rubber does, if just those two materials by themselves. And the studs definitely help on the rocks and help, on the stream, on the slippery banks and things like that. There's nothing that's perfect for everything, I don't think. A lot of times for winter fishing, you don't want felt because you'll get 5 inches of snow build up on the bottom of the boot.
Giant pimp shoes.
Yeah, it's a weird deal. I don't know why it happens, but it does. So, you wouldn't want to use those felt boots when there's a lot of snow on the ground. But studded felt for me, I like a lot. And then if you have snow on the ground, studded rubber. We still sell mostly studded rubber. Years ago it was felt, and studded felt, and then you had the invasive species and everything like that. And everybody went to studded rubber. I think a lot of people forgot how good studded felt is. I mean, as far as gripping, just so many different surfaces. That's what I like.
All right.
Yeah.
How often do you get out?
Oh, I get out when I need to.
Right.
If the fishing's good or I've been cooped up in the shop here for too long and I really need to get out and go fishing for a few hours, I can. I definitely don't do as many guide trips as I used to because you can't balance making sure everything's okay at the shop and be a good steelhead guide at the same time because you got to be on the water all the time. I do a few, maybe 7 or 8 each fall, 7 or 8 each spring for guys that really want me to take them out. But we have a good, and it's one of those things where, if you were to come in the shop 6 or 7 times and we were to talk about steelhead fishing, a lot of guys are like, oh, well, why don't you take me fishing? Like, boy, I'd love to, you know what, but I'll set you up with one of our guides, and those are really who you want to go with because they're on the water every day.
How'd you land getting Brett to work here?
Brett's, that
dude, he caught what I consider the most perfect brown trout I've ever seen pulled out of Virginia.
Yeah.
He catches 30-pound carp in the C&O Canal, and he got a snakehead out of the C&O Canal.
Yeah. No, Brett's he lives around here. He's from Cleveland Heights, and he's always been just very into fly fishing, and he's always been very good at it. He doesn't look for somebody to hand things to him. He's always been somebody that if and this isn't me, this is going back to Brett showed me more than I've showed him, that's for sure, especially around here because he grew up, it's more his backyard than it is mine. But, when he was younger and his kind of, mentors, let's say, that taught him, Brett never really asked for specific spots and, hey, where do I go do this? Where do I go do that? He just kind of wanted to know how to do it and what he should be looking for. And he put in the work. He knows all the access points and all the spots on the river and when to fish them under what flows. And it just, he just put in the work and figured it out, And, yeah, we're lucky to have him. He's he lives in D.C. now, but he's always in contact with me and Pete here at the shop.
He lives in the Young Kids neighborhood.
Yeah.
Where I lived 16 years ago, back in the day, where all the bars are and the noise and... Yeah, I like it quiet in the burbs now. Yeah. Well, he's a little younger. Yep.
Yeah, but no, he's good. He's very good. He's always willing to, even if he's in D.C., and if I were to call him up and say, hey, I'm in a jam this weekend, I really need some help, he would come up and help out if he could. Yeah, no, we're lucky to have a relationship with him, and, he's still very active in the shop here and does a lot of stuff for us, and yeah, no, he's a good friend. So.
I see him with his puppy last spring, shad fishing. Mm-hmm. Funny, cute little dog. It's like a labradoodle or something.
Yeah,
fishing doodle.
Yeah, and the other guides we have too. I mean, they're really good, really good. I mean, John.
You wouldn't hire them if they weren't.
No, that's the thing. That's the thing. You can't have. We have a few. We could use more, but we're not really. We don't have the right person to plug in yet. You know, John Fabian fishes the Delaware, fishes Alaska, fishes Montana. I mean, the guys that guide for us, they're full-time fishing guides. You know, that's what they do. They don't just steelhead guide in the winter and spring and then have regular jobs. They're full-time fishing guides. I mean, my nephew Justin, he does Martha's Vineyard saltwater trips. He does muskie stuff. He does smallmouth stuff. And in the winter, he does steelhead stuff. I mean, that's what they do. So they're very good at it. And I think their experience with all the other fisheries, you know, just helps them become better steelhead fishermen and better teachers when they have guys on the water. So we're lucky. We have a very good guide staff.
So let's say someone wants to hire you guys for a day. How does that work?
So typically what we would do is, I mean, there's some information about the guide service on the website, you know, chagrinriveroutfitters.com. Typically somebody would, if they're local, most of our business is local. We really haven't had to reach out from other places to other places out of state even because, you know, we stay really busy with repeat local customers, I think, because our guide staff is so good. And you know, but what they would do is just call up the shop here, and if they had questions about times of year or how they would like to fish or when they would like to fish, you know, whether they want to swing flies or indicator fish and those kind of things, you know, we'd help them answer any questions that they have and try and plug them in with the right guide at the right time of year based on what their expectations are. So we try and cater everything around the client, what they're looking for, you know, to make sure they get the best experience possible. But the first step would just be to call the shop here and ask a few questions and see what we can see if we're the right fit for them, and if we are, how we can get them a good steelhead trip.
Like the good fit for them.
Yeah.
You got a real difficult website to remember. What is it again?
www.chagrinriveroutfitters.com.
And that's also your Instagram, Chagrin River Outfitters?
Yes, sir.
Any other social media?
We do Facebook.
Okay.
Facebook,
Probably
Instagram.
on that too.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, that's Chagrin River Outfitters also.
All right.
Yeah.
What about events? I remember a couple years ago you had Senyo was coming up between like Christmas and New Year's to tie in here. But I guess it's not coming up, coming down the lake. But I had the flu, so I had to miss it. But you have events every now and then?
We have a lot of people come in, you know.
Sherlock Holmes across the street.
The game's afoot. We, you know, April Vilke's been here a few times. We have Kevin Feenstra comes down from Michigan. Lance Wilton, those guys are coming in this winter to do some stuff for us. George Daniel's been here a few times.
George and I have been going back and forth. George, we're going to get you on soon.
Yeah.
Our schedule is just never.
Yeah.
If you Google his name, it's like I was trying to see if he had his own website, and then like the third option was, how tall is George Daniel? I don't know why that would be like the most Googled thing about him. With all of his fishing. He's a lanky guy, but...
Yeah, I never really wondered how tall he was.
Yeah, that's like the most searched thing about him for some odd reason.
Maybe the NBA teams are scouting him.
Yeah.
Who else? You know, Jeff and Jerry locally, great resources. You know, I mean, they've been around, they've done it. And I mean, you know, whether it's Great Lakes steelheading or muskie or, you know, lake trout and things over on the Niagara or brook trout up in Lake Ontario and, you know, everything in between. I mean, they're always very willing to help out at all the local shops too. So we're lucky. There's a lot of good anglers in the Midwest, and there's a lot of people that are willing to share what they know and what they love. So yeah, we have a lot of events here, and we have a lot of local guys. Just the local fly tying stuff that we do with John and Justin and the other guides and myself, and Pete does some. Pete's very big background in saltwater fishing. He ran a fly shop on Cape Cod for 15 years before he moved to Cleveland, so he has a lot of experience in saltwater, striped bass, bluefish, and bonita, and a lot of experience with the travel industry. He runs our trips down to the Bahamas and Mexico and Ascension Bay and things like that. So we're pretty well rounded in for a shop in Ohio.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Yeah, so we're lucky. We can help most people out. And if we can't help them out, we'll try and get them in contact with whomever can. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How long has the shop been here?
We've been here since 2006. We opened in June 2006. So, how long's that?
It's going to be 11 years.
11 years.
Starting Sunday.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's been a good run. I can't believe it's been that long. And we're still learning. We're trying to do things a little better each year, you know. there's a lot of things we've gotten better at over the years. There's a lot of things we can still get better at and need to get better at and improve on. So, we're trying to get better each year still, and we know there's a lot of room for growth and a lot of things we can do better as well. So that's what we're working on now.
Now, let's say after a long day of fishing, hopefully catching, where should someone go for a good meal around here? You got like your favorite burger joint?
Oh, yeah. I mean, boy, right here in Chagrin Falls, I mean, Cleveland itself is, I mean, if you're a foodie or just like good food, there's a lot of good food in Cleveland, in the Cleveland area. And right down here in Chagrin Falls, Flipside Cafe for burgers and a lot of good beers, a lot of good craft beers and things like that's fantastic. Grove Hill, my buddy Mick, the bartender over there, and Tim Bando, who's a pretty well-known chef, not just in this area but all over the country. He has a very nice restaurant. There's plenty to eat and drink in the Cleveland area, no doubt about it.
They sell the Great Lakes Christmas Ale for $14 a 6-pack where we live. Is that crazy?
It is crazy. It's not that much here, but it's close. I think it's 12 here. I think it's $11.99.
I used to have to drive. I couldn't even find it.
Yeah.
And then once I found it up here, I drove it back. Now Safeway by us has a whole display.
Yeah. It's a good beer, and boy, they sure do sell the heck out of it.
I'd heard about it for years before I could even find it.
Yeah. The Great Lakes Brewery here, I mean, they have the Dortmunder Gold, the Commodore Perry, all their beers they're very good, very good. If you like beers and you're in the area, actually you don't have to be in the area anymore. Like you said, you can get them in D.C. and they're really getting a good reputation and growing as a business and a company. But
so another thing about fishing up here and all around, that should be okay. You have these Metro Park systems, which are parking lots, restrooms, which are awesome, and then maps you can just pull offline and see where to go. One thing about this river, though, I noticed you don't have like named holes or anything.
No.
You just send people to like something Mills or this street or that street, and then you jump in from there.
Correct. So I guess a lot of that might be that, we haven't been fly fishing for steelhead here, at least like we are now, for enough years to start naming stuff. You know what I mean? Some of the fishing partners, like if you and I would go fishing for a few years, we'd have our own little names for spots. And there's a few names. There's a few names for spots. Like on the Chagrin, everybody knows where the Bark and Dog Hole is. And if you don't know where it is, the first time you go there, oh, this must be the Bark and Dog Hole.
Right.
Because you walk up the river and 5 Weimaraners come out and start barking at you. So that's the Bark and Dog Hole. So there's a few name spots that guys know. But, yeah, I don't think it's quite there yet. And the other thing is, to be honest with you, our rivers change a lot. I mean,
the spot I was at today,
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah.
Than a couple years ago. Just everything shifted. There was deposit in one spot. I was able to wade where a couple years ago would have been waist deep.
Yeah, a lot of trees go down, holes fill in, washouts here and there. I mean, there's places that for 6, 7, 8 years are good, consistent, reliable producers, and then one big rainstorm and blowout and 2 trees fall in and it's not there anymore. So that's a lot of it too, because they really do change a lot from year to year even. They're not going to change drastically from year to year, but they change over a 2-3 year period, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. So I think that might have a little bit to do with it too. But there are a few name spots on each river that guys know what you're referring to, that have been around a little bit, but nothing you wouldn't know nationally for sure.
Do the guys kind of know each other on the river?
I think a lot of them do. Yeah, there's a couple different group dynamics. I think a lot of the center pinners know each other. A lot of the spay guys know each other. A lot of the indicator nymph fishing guys know each other. I don't know if there's a little bit of crossover between some of them. But yeah, there's definitely, there's a lot of guys that know each other on the river. Absolutely. Who drives what car, who fishes, who swings flies, who indicator fishes, who center pins. Yeah, it's a pretty nice community overall.
How far do people drive to fish here, other than me from D.C.? And I know Victor Kernis drives up here.
Yeah, no, there's it's getting more and more popular every year. We get guys that come up from Florida to fish with us every year. We get some guys that come from Texas to fish with us every year. Again, most of our clients are still local. And you get more out-of-state people in the spring because there's just more fishing, fish in the rivers in the spring. The fishing's just better. There's more fish in the rivers in the spring. I mean, you see cars from, Wisconsin, you see a lot of cars from Virginia, West Virginia, PA, those kind of places. So I think, within a 7-8 hour drive, if you drew a circle around it, we get people down here from Canada and things like that too. So I think if you drew a circle around whatever radius makes it about a 7-hour drive, we draw people in from there quite a bit, more and more every year.
Very nice.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So you pulled up the Metro maps. And are these just done through like taxes?
So
there's a really nice sign that doesn't have any graffiti or stickers on it, and the pullouts. And
one of the presidents started it in it looks about
had like 10 or 8 presidents from here.
1917. Yeah, Ohio's a big state, no doubt about it when it comes to politics. Who the heck was it?
Grover Cleveland.
I don't know.
I can't think of any other. My wife maybe would know.
I don't know which president it was.
George Washington used to live down from where we live now.
Yeah, I feel silly because I used to know who it was. And okay, it says here William Stinchcomb, a young self-taught engineer, conceived the idea of an outer chain of parks with connecting boulevards and put it together. And I must have been one of the presidents that passed it. But to be honest with you, I forget the exact history of it. But the good thing about the metro parks, and I feel silly because I don't know exactly all the details about it, but I mean the good thing about the metro parks is it opens up a lot of access on these rivers to not only anglers, but there's bridle trails, there's soccer fields, there's polo field, there's basketball courts.
There's so many people with dogs walking around here. Even on the Rocky yesterday.
Dog parks, I mean, you name it. The metro park system is one of the better things we have in our area, and we're very proud of it. And we have some very people working in the metro park system now that do a great job and continue to add access every year. So it's a very good program we have here in the Cleveland area, and we'd have a lot less places to fish and just be outdoors without it for sure. So we're lucky to have it.
Do you know why they're called reservations?
You're asking me some tough questions.
Yeah, sorry.
And questions I should probably know. I don't know why they call.
I mean, you're probably just used to it. It's something I just noticed.
No, yeah. I mean, coming in from out of town, sure, you would be like, hey, what's this mean and what's that mean? Yeah. And I just haven't explored it in as much detail as I should. But I don't know why they call them reservations.
But it's neat that you can go to the website. You can just look up Cleveland Metro Parks. And then each river has pull-offs, detailed, not the most detailed maps, but they're good enough that you can find your, a spot to fish. Yeah, and they show you access points, which is the main thing. Because, people come in here and they're like, hey, I don't want any exact spots, but can you tell me access points? And I give people access points. A lot of them are metro parks, and I'll tell them the exact spots to fish. There may be fish in there, they may not. And that's the thing with steelhead fishing. It's not like trout fishing or fishing for a resident fish where, oh man, this is a good run. We don't want to tell anybody about this run. It's loaded up with fish. You're dealing with a migratory fish. So, what's a good run today? Those fish may be 3 miles up the river tomorrow. You know what I mean? They move around a lot. So, we're not bashful, and we don't really hide spots. I mean, there's not a whole lot of secrets here in Ohio anymore, especially with all the local guys. I mean, everybody knows all the spots. The key is to finding the fish. Mm-hmm. The spots are the spots, but which spots are the fish in? Does that make sense? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were spots today. I was filming them. I'm like, these are the fishiest looking.
Yeah.
Just like 4 feet deep with riffles like that.
Yeah.
There's got to be something in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they may have been there too. I mean, the conditions were pretty tough today. And not so much the visibility today. The visibility was probably okay, but when you get marginal visibility and cold water when they're really sluggish. If the water temp's 50 and a fish sees a bead or a streamer come swinging by and a foot of visibility, boom, he's on it. His metabolism charged up and he can grab it. In this cold water, you really need to bump them on the nose and they need time to react to it because they're just not super active right now.
What's an ideal water flow for here?
For the Chagrin, 400-ish. It depends how you like fishing. Between 500 and 350, depending on visibility, is pretty good for swinging a fly. Once it starts to get lower than that, it turns more into better indicator water. So it changes a little bit as the levels drop.
And you guys had a pretty dry summer as well.
Wicked dry summer and fall. Yeah, I think now the water, the first few rains we got, I don't remember when it was, but there was a pretty good batch of rain that came through here about mid-October, and it rained for literally 3 days. And the rivers on the gauges on the graphs, they didn't even start going up until the third day. Everything was just soaking into the ground. It was a very dry summer and a very dry fall. Now, I think the water tables, stock back up pretty good, and when it rains or you get some snow melt, the ground's saturated and there's water seeping into the river. So we should be pretty good from here on out, hopefully. But yeah, this summer and fall was very dry, and that's why the fishing was tough this fall. They need water to come in and move upstream, and we just didn't have a lot of it. I think that was true all over. It seemed true all over. Ohio, PA, New York. I know everybody was.
I gave up in my garden.
Yeah.
So, forget this, man.
Yeah.
The pumpkins did fine somehow, but fruits and vegetables were non-existent.
Yeah. So I think we're back where we should be now. So we've had some good rain and snow and everything else, so we're in pretty good shape. So hopefully that trend continues.
The big guy.
There he is.
You want to do some interview too?
I have nothing important to talk about.
Oh, you can talk about something.
Neither do we.
Even less than Dan.
Well, introduce yourself at least.
Hi, I'm Patrick. I'm kind of a shop rat, and I work too much and don't fish enough.
All right. Well, I caught nothing today. But it was fun. I'd rather the scenic value. So River Road, I think, is amazing.
Oh, definitely.
It looks like they're building a castle in one spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a $24 million house that in D.C. that some guy bought, and they kicked him out because he couldn't pay. It's that big.
Yeah.
But the shale walls, those huge as rock walls, there's anything like that except up here.
Yeah, no, a lot of people are, if they haven't fished Ohio before and they come in from out of state and they're not really sure what to expect, I think a lot of times they have low expectations, which never hurts, of a place. You're like, man, this is actually pretty cool. But it's very nice. The rivers are very nice. The water quality is very good. The fish are great. We have a very good fishery here that, we're kind of protective of. We like to brag about it. At the same time, it's nice that we can go fishing and not have to deal with a lot of people. I don't know if you saw anybody else out today or.
Yeah, so 3 guys, 2 in the water, 1 on a rock, driving up here.
Yeah, you can. There's plenty of elbow room to get out and fish and walk and enjoy your time on the water for sure. So we're fortunate, and we have, 5, 6. There's a lot of water to fish, a lot of different rivers to fish too to spread guys out.
And it's all the heart of Metropolis.
Yeah.
Which still kind of boggles the mind.
Yeah, a lot of it. You can be, if you lived in downtown Cleveland and you drove, an hour and 45 minutes east, you would drive over 7 pretty good steelhead rivers between Ohio, PA, and New York. And if you drove 45 minutes west, you'd go over 3 other good ones.
That's crazy.
So we're lucky. We're lucky. A lot of guys are getting into the lakeshore fishing, which is pretty cool. More and more guys fishing the river mouths and breakwalls and piers and jetties and things like that for the steelhead, which is, when they're staging late summer and all through the fall, you can get into some pretty gangbusters fishing right off the piers and breakwalls and beaches and things like that, and that's getting more and more popular as well.
Do they have a bikini hatch down there?
Not in October. Okay. No. You could go down there in July, yes. fishing's not too hot, but you take what you can get.
Absolutely.
Actually, the fishing's pretty good, just not for steelhead. A lot of smallmouth, a lot of white bass, a lot of freshwater drum and things like that.
Freshwater drum?
Sheephead.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's weird. We don't have those up where we are.
No, reef donkeys, and you can see them. Though you can see them tailing. Yeah,
hard.
Yeah, you'll see them tailing.
Eat stuff off the jetties and.
Oh yeah, they'll chase the crayfish and get in there, and you'll see them tailing, and you can sight cast to them and things like that at times as well.
Like little goby or crayfish patterns and around the rocks and stuff.
The gobies are big.
The introduced gobies from the ballast water.
Correct. But fish love them. They're like a little mashed potato. They're soft and not bony, and
there you go.
Slurp them right up. Smallmouth love them. Steelhead love them.
There's a guy that came to our fishing club that has a Umpqua pattern that's a goby that got picked up.
Yeah. Kevin Feenstra has a really cool. He ties a lot of just. Again, we were talking earlier about the intruders, how they fish well, but you might be better off a lot of times fishing something more like what the fish are actually eating. Leeches, gobies, sculpins, that kind of thing. And Kevin has a lot of patterns like that are tied more for the native species, that baitfish species that the steelhead are actually eating. And he has a pretty cool goby pattern that fishes pretty well.
Do you have stray salmon that come through here?
Yeah.
Yeah, a few every now and then.
This year we had a good run of pink salmon. Yeah, nobody's really sure where they came from, but there was a handful caught in just about every river.
That's weird. It's so weird that fish just show up. You don't know. Like, we've got the tilapia in D.C., but that's because Chinese families release fish into the water before a meal, or the homeless guys are paid by monks to go and release fish from the grocery stores.
Huh.
So at least we know where that comes. But pink salmon, that's just.
They stock them in Michigan. And I think on the north side of Lake Erie there's a few, but they caught them in the Rocky, saw a couple out of the Chagrin, Euclid Creek, at Trout Run over in Pennsylvania where they pull all their fish for their stocking program. There's a very short stretch of creek down to the lake, and then they've got a weir there for fish control so they can get in and net the fish for their program. And there was a dozen pinks in there one day when I stopped and looked when I was over that way.
Yeah. What about, do you have the carp fishing that Michigan has? The Lake Michigan?
Not to quite the same level, I don't think. But you see some giants cruising around down on the lakefront. And the slower parts of the rivers, all the steelhead rivers also have pretty good carp fishing in the slower.
I come to Ohio to do my carp fishing.
There's definitely a good number of fish around here. We had absolute craziness with the cicada emergence this spring. It was amazing how spooky carp normally are. It was completely the opposite.
They're eating cicadas.
They were eating cicadas on top like crazy. Throwing like a 2-inch long big foam bug on like a size 4 B10S, 12-pound tippet, just splat it down, and you'd have 3 or 4 come over to look at it. It was amazing.
That's really cool. So you're going to wait 17 more years for that to happen?
Yeah, I think so. But it was very cool while it lasted.
I noticed everyone had been hoping for the big cicada hatch, and driving through the Alleghenies in Ohio, the branches were dead. I could see where they laid their eggs. But yeah, we didn't get any of it.
There was a few pockets that were amazing. Just the volume of sound and the number of bugs that you saw was...
Dogs eating them, women screaming.
Yeah, children eating them, playing with mom going, "Oh my God, don't eat that!" Because they were just literally everywhere in the pockets. I mean, walking 50 yards down to the creek from a parking spot, probably stepped on hundreds of them. And you could hear that from...
It was deafening.
Pretty far away from where you actually saw a big concentration of them, just with the number of them all buzzing and making noise. It was...
The cicadas?
Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
The carp fishing for them was amazing. Might have to find some other emergencies and make a little road trip in the next couple of years.
Yeah, follow the cicada hatch.
because it was very cool. And talked to a few people who went down and fished like the Yakigani for trout when the cicadas were emerging down there. And same thing, just big dry flies, fish going crazy for them. So it was a very cool emergence, because I was out of town like the entire summer that they emerged the last time, so didn't really have a good reference point for what was going to happen. And then there was just hundreds of millions of them. I don't know, they were everywhere.
Any of them get caught in your beard?
Yes, actually, one flew into my beard and got a little tangled. I had to just grab it and
You can dry
pull
flies
it
in
out.
that.
Yeah. I have stuck a big popper in there a few times, just let it dry out, or a streamer. And,
How long has that been growing for?
a little over 2 years since the last time I trimmed it. And
It's like Captain Caveman. You're like, oh, you can pull this out.
I trimmed it for my little sister's wedding in October 2 years ago, and haven't really done anything to it since then.
Nice and easy. Just wake up and go.
Yep.
All right. Well, Dan is occupied. I think we'll end it here. I don't want to keep you guys, but where can we find your website again?
What is our website? ChagrinRiverOutfitters.com, I believe.
It's an easy one.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see if I can get a hold of Dan in a moment.
Yeah, ChagrinRiverOutfitters.com.
We're just gonna say our goodbyes. Anything else you want to talk about? The shop, the fishery. So why is there? I'll see one car that's completely covered in snow and 100 cars that aren't.
With the different lake effect snow that we have around here, there'll be bands where you'll get 18 inches of snow, and a mile from there, you might get an inch.
So weird.
So
How do they deal with canceling school? Or they don't even cancel school up here.
not that much, no.
When they forecast snow, they cancel it in DC, and you wake up and it's sunny.
Yeah, I definitely went to school when there was 12 inches of snow that fell the night before on numerous occasions in middle school and high school. And
It's the wussification of America.
like, the bus can make it through.
Every kid should be handed a snow shovel at the beginning of the year, and they got to go and shovel. All right, so yesterday I inquired, why are there so much like pieces of tile and random bricks and just old pieces of things in the river? You said it's just old Rust Belt stuff?
Well, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There's been a few dams that have gone out. There's been some flooding and things like that. One of the less scenic places on the river, where the river kind of carved away a bank where there was an old landfill, and a little bit of that dumps in. Not the best spot to go fishing, but it happened.
I know the history.
I'm sure
of this.
foundries and stuff were along the river shore that were making those kind of products, and the old. Hey, what's going on, Marcus? How are you?
How you doing?
Good to see you.
Good.
There was an old. I'm pretty sure there was a factory that made bricks down there in Gates Mills in one time, and maybe some of them came from there. There's a lot of weird stuff in the river at times. It's usually after a big flood.
I found a dumpster today, like up in the woods.
Huh.
It's like if it was really dumping snow, I would have sat in there and just chilled out for a bit. It was on its side, like a little cave.
A real dumpster.
Real dumpster.
Huh. I haven't seen that yet, so I don't know, but yeah.
It's below the bridge spot you showed me yesterday. Good swinging water. Right above
Oh,
it.
yeah. Huh. That's
Also,
weird.
You guys had a lot of pollution issues back in the day. Did they just dump whatever they wanted to in the rivers back then, too? Not just dump it so it goes downstream to someone else?
Pretty much. Yeah, everything goes downstream, so as long as you're dumping it in and you're upstream of it, they don't worry about it. There was a lot of industry, and a lot of people, textiles, steel, those kind of things going on, chemicals for whatever purpose they were making them for. And it's just a lot of it there wasn't a whole lot of regulation, yeah. And a lot of it just went into the river, sewage runoff with where stormwater and sewage runoff just couldn't, when you got a big rain, it just couldn't accommodate all the.
So this fishing couldn't have happened 100 years ago.
Some of the rivers, it could have. I mean, for instance, the Chagrin had great water quality. It still has some native brook trout up in the headwaters of some of the, and I think the state record brook trout came out of the Chagrin not too. I mean, I forget what year it was, like a 2.5 pound brook trout. So, and there are some
2.5 pound brook trout.
2.5 pound. You know that, but that was back in the day.
Yeah.
So some of the water quality was very good. It was more the Cuyahoga that got this area the bad rap for the water quality. The rest of it isn't bad. Traditionally, historically speaking, I don't think. You know, so yeah, people think in Northeast Ohio or Cleveland, and yeah, the river caught on fire, the burning river, that kind of thing, which is the Cuyahoga, and yeah, that's a pretty disgraceful event. But overall, the water quality on a lot of these rivers is very good. There's, have you fished the Grand River?
No.
So one of the things you'll see in the Grand River that's very cool and kind of a, canary in the coal mine, kind of, so to speak, is those big. I mean, there's huge. I mean, there's freshwater mussels that are as big as
I've seen them here.
Dinner plate. Yeah.
They're in the Olentangy too. I mean, they're massive.
Yeah.
I bring the shells back for my daughter.
Yeah, and you need pretty good water quality for those to thrive. And there's a lot of. I mean, a lot of them.
That was probably food back for the Native Americans here.
Ooh.
I caught one on the Grand.
That's a gagger.
This past summer, I was stripping a streamer and thought I snagged up on something and kept pulling out and it came loose and stripping it back. It's like, there's something heavy on the end of this, and it was about that size.
They're enormous.
Yeah,
I haven't seen them up here, but more down by like Tom Field.
Mm-hmm.
I saw them, which was like, these things are enormous.
The ones on the Grand are even bigger and more plentiful. There's a lot of them. So
They must filter a lot of water being that big.
Mm-hmm. I would think so. Yeah, I would think so.
Patrick may be too young. Do you remember the SNL skit with Bill Murray drinking swill?
No.
He was standing in a lake, and it's like fresh water from Lake Erie, and he picks up like a ladle and pours it into like a coffee cup, and it's like thick, like I don't know, petroleum jelly mixed with baby oil or something, and it's like this clear sludge. It's like glug, glug, glug. And the whole joke was that how dirty the water was. If I find it, I'll send it to you.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty gross.
Good old Bill Murray.
Yeah, and a lot of it, too. I mean, the water in Lake Erie wasn't, for a long time, it wasn't great, but it wasn't so much Lake Erie's problem. It was the, coming down from Detroit and things like that, you know what I mean? It is just, this is where it comes. So it ended up here, and yeah, our lake was not in the best of shape, but it wasn't, for the most part, Ohio's doing.
See if I can find it. Swill.
That stayed up north. Kidding. Kind of.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you guys go. I got some stuff to plan out for tomorrow. So, again, we can find you chagrinriveroutfitters.com. Year-round fishery, tying department, soft goods, rods, reels, waders, knickknacks. Excellent source of flies. Now you also carry an OPST.
Yeah, absolutely. No, we try and cater to our customers and have what they want. And OPST's coming on strong, no doubt about it.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for the time and for all the information.
Hey, my pleasure. It's great to be here. Sorry we couldn't get out and go fishing, but just busy holiday time.
Folks, if you stop in here, say you heard it on the podcast. Right on. All right. Cheers.
Thank you for joining us for the Fly Fishing Consultant Podcast. For more information or to contact Rob, please go to www.robsnowhite.com.
And if you lack the strength of your own, honey, hold out your hands and take it from an old man.